Hi, and welcome. In this DVD, we're going to cover first impressions. Before you made up your mind to walk up to a woman, she's already made up her mind about you. Now, what does she use to make her opinion or make her judgment about you? As it turns out, there's a real science to this, and this DVD goes into detail about what the psychology of first impressions is, what she notices first, and how she makes a judgment about you. Learning the psychology of first impressions and using it to your advantage will help you make a much more high-impact first impression. The thing about first impressions is the world will always come to see you the way you see yourself. You cannot project an image that is incongruent with how you feel about yourself. And so it's very important to understand that whatever you are inside is going to be reflected outwardly. And that is the truth of first impressions. You will attract what you project. If you want to know what first impression you're giving off right now, take a look at the kind of women that you attract and the kind of women that you've had in your life so far interested in you. If these are not the kind of women that you're attracted to, or these are not the kind of women that ultimately you want to be dating, you need to change what you're projecting. And this is what we're going to talk about today. All the little things that you need to do, inside and out, to change what you project outwardly. So, the psychology of first impressions is really quite interesting. As it turns out, the human brain is split in two. We have a left hemisphere and a right hemisphere. And the left hemisphere is a very logical, organized hemisphere. And the right hemisphere is more the artistic way we see things. The left hemisphere knows things. The right hemisphere intuits things. First impressions are all about right hemisphere thinking. We don't know why we know certain things. We don't know why we made this judgment about somebody, but this is what we see about somebody, and somewhere, on a deep level, some information registers, and we get an impression about somebody. So a first impression is the instantaneous judgment of your qualities as in a whole person, as an entire person. Based on what? Based on very little information. And not only is this little information used to extrapolate, but they get a very brief sampling, a 5-second sampling of your personality, of your interactive style, of your behavior, and they assume that this is the way you are all the time, across all the different contexts. Now, whether or not that's true is irrelevant, because this is about perception. It's not about reality. It's about controlling that perception. So, once that first impression is created, it creates what we call a cognitive filter. And every single thing that you do after that gets filtered through this cognitive filter. And the cognitive filter slaps labels on things. Loser, creep, jerk. Interesting. Once you get slotted into a negative category, and notice that I've put the negative categories first, that's because it's so much easier to fall into those negative categories than into a positive one. It's much more easy to be disqualified than to qualify yourself. And once you've been slotted in one of those negative categories, it's very difficult to get yourself out of it. Some psychologists say that it takes 10 impressions to make up for one negative first impression. 10 to 1. So how do you get around this? Well, the easiest answer is, don't make a bad first impression. Now, we're going to go into a lot of detail about what a woman uses to make her first impression. But the first thing you need to know is about these labels that we get slotted into, these categories we get slotted into, these labels that we get slapped with. Very important to understand how that cognitive filter works and how it filters everything that you are doing afterwards. And just like the love doctor, it usually takes just a few seconds for somebody to take a look at you and make judgments about your whole person. And guess what, guys? We do the same thing. We see a woman on the street that we know nothing about, and we start making all kinds of judgments about her. Wow, she would be a great lover. Wow, she looks like a really sweet person. Wow, she looks really smart. Guess what? We know nothing about these women. And we're making all these judgments about their personality, about their qualities, about who they are as people, based on very little information. And women are doing the same thing to us. So let's say a woman notices that you're overweight. What does she say? Gee, probably this guy has a thyroid problem. Gee, maybe this guy has bad genes. That's not what they say. They see a guy who's overweight and they say, lazy. She's making a judgment about your character, about your qualities as a person. Why? Because she's been eating salad for the last 6 months and she hates salad, but she's doing it just because she's trying to look good. Look at your shoes. What was the primary criteria that you used to choose your shoes? If the primary criteria for choosing the shoes that you're wearing right now was comfort, that's what you're projecting out to the world. I am a comfortable man. And remember, you are going to attract what you project. So you're going to attract a woman who's a comfortable woman, or a woman in comfortable shoes. If those are the kind of women that you want in your life, that's great. But normally, those are not the kind of women that turn men's heads. All these women who are standing around in these uncomfortable high-heeled shoes, what do you think their primary choice, their primary criteria for choosing those shoes were? You think it was comfort? I don't think so. Probably something a lot more like sexy. If she sees a guy who's sloppy, she probably doesn't think, wow, this is just a guy who's so busy he doesn't have time to take care of himself. She probably says, this guy's not reliable. He doesn't care about himself. If she sees a guy who's too groomed, what is she going to say? Tells me something about his personality. He's probably into himself too much. Narcissistic. Even worse, he must be gay. Details is what first impressions is all about. Controlling the details. Women spend an agonizing time just scrutinizing the little details of their wardrobe, trying to match their earrings with the little buckle on the shoes and making sure that the shoes match the handbag and the... It's crazy. How much time did you spend taking a look at what you project and the look that you're projecting? Do you know what first impression you give off? Do you want to know? Sometimes knowing the first impression that we give off is one of the most important things we can do. And the exercises that we're going to do are going to transform your life because they're going to give you the tools and the feedback you need to be able to control what first impression you give off and what people are going to think about you, what category they are going to slot you into. And that's within your control to change. The first thing that gives off first impression is body language. Before a woman even looks at you, she has noticed something moving in her visual field. Now, as it turns out, a very interesting fact is in nature, predatory animals tend to have eyes closer together, and they have what we call foveal vision, which is a very high visual acuity in the center of their visual field. Prey animals, like deer or gazelle, have their eyes wider apart, and that's because they have better peripheral vision to see the prey coming in. As it turns out, in the human species, women have much better peripheral vision than men. That's why when a man sees a beautiful woman walking down the street, they kind of do like this. They're trying to keep the target in the center of their visual field, in their foveal vision. When women see a great-looking guy, this is what they do. And then they talk to their girlfriends with their eyes going, and then they all start giggling. What did they notice? What made them want to turn around and look? Something in their peripheral vision, something in the way that that object was moving in their visual field made them want to turn around to look. So what body language do you give off? Are your movements slow, confident, fluid, decisive? Or are your movements jerky and, kind of all over the place, erratic? Somebody who projects confidence and leadership has slower movements, takes the time to move through the field in a very decisive way because he knows where he's going. Very important. Also be very aware of your posture. Take a look at your posture right now. How do you normally stand? How do you sit? When you're talking to somebody, are you very shy and tend to turn your body away from them, or are you able to stand square on? Become very aware of your body language and the posture that you project all the time. This is the first thing that people are going to notice about you way before they've heard anything that comes out of your mouth. This is what women are going to notice in their peripheral field to make them want to turn around and look and see what that was. Also, be very aware of the use of your space around you. If you tend to gesticulate, this takes up a lot more space than somebody who just stands there, not moving at all. But don't gesticulate in an artificial or erratic manner. Second thing is take a look at your look. Women are attracted to your look, not necessarily your looks. What's the difference between your look and your looks? Well, as it turns out, a huge difference. Your looks is what you're born with, whether you're attractive, good-looking, hunky, model-type guy. Most of us are not. Most of us are just average-looking guy. But you can have a very interesting look that says a lot about your personality. Now, take a look at what your look projects about you.